evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5:30 and I will call this regular meeting of the Burnsville City Council to order. It is our tradition to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's meeting is being conducted both in person and online. Our council members are all present, and our staff is also present in the council chambers. Members of the public may attend in person, or the public can also watch us on channels 16 or 859, or online at burnsvillemn.gov/meetings. The public can also participate through Zoom by joining us at zoom.us/join. More information is available on our meeting webpage and in a council agenda packet. The next item on the agenda is announcements and presentations. Our announcements have to do with all of our upcoming meetings. Regular council meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 5th. That meeting is canceled. We also have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, July 19th at 5:30 p.m. We have a work session that's scheduled for Tuesday, July 12th at 5:30 p.m. We have work sessions scheduled for Tuesday, June 21st, which is tonight, at 6:30 p.m. in the council chambers. 6:30, depending on what time this meeting is done. And then we have a proposed 2023 budget and capital improvement plan meeting on Tuesday, June 28th at 5:30 p.m. That meeting will be held in Dakota B, and that's downstairs. We have a service discussion 3 on Tuesday, July 19th at 6 p.m. in the Dakota B room, and that's downstairs. All meetings of the City Council are held here in the chambers, and unless I announce that it's going to be in a different room. Tonight is also very important. We have a presentation that's going to be made by someone from MRPA, but Mr. Heitkamp, our staff member, is going to make that introduction. And so, Mr. Heitkamp, yes, you are making that introduction of the person who's going to present you with the award.
Sure. Madam Mayor and the council, we are lucky enough to have Carrie Anderson here from the Minnesota Recreation and Park Association, who will be making an announcement.
Thank you, Scott. All right, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Carrie Anderson, and I am here tonight to present a Minnesota Recreation and Park Association 2021 Award of Excellence to the City of Burnsville. That was a mouthful. Okay, so before I do that, I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you about the Minnesota Recreation and Park Association. The Minnesota Recreation and Park Association was formed in 1937 to foster the growth and development of the parks and recreation profession throughout the state. Presently, we have nearly 900 professional, corporate, board, commission, student, and retiree members throughout the state. The Award of Excellence is an annual program of the MRPA that was solely created to recognize agencies and their staff for exemplary project that either was implemented in 2021 or received substantial revisions in 2021. And MRPA members may nominate a project for an Award of Excellence. in 7 different categories. Nominations received are then reviewed, evaluated, and scored by awards committee members. Only the top scoring nominations are selected to receive an award of excellence recognition. So on behalf of the MRPA Awards Committee, it is my pleasure tonight to present the Award of Excellence to the City of Burnsville for its winning project, Winter Golf. Winter Golf was a new, innovative idea to engage the community in a low-cost, outdoor, COVID-friendly event. This unique event also provided a high level of collaboration from both internal and external partners and proved to be successful by filling up all available tee times. Burnsville creativity, innovation, and passion to provide quality recreation programs for the community is why Burnsville is being awarded this award of excellence tonight. I would also like to recognize Scott Heitkamp, who nominated this project for the Awards of Excellence. So today, I have the actual award, and I want to make sure that it's presented to the City of Burnsville. And so I don't know if somebody on the council or the mayor.
Ms. Anderson, I think it might be appropriate, because this is a first.
Okay.
Mr. Ryan, Mr. Heitkamp, please come in and accept the award. I mean, this is something that you did, and so please have the honor of accepting this award for us.
Great.
Yes.
Well, here's the Winter Golf Awards of Excellence for you today. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Don't let JJ hang that in his office.
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, I work with the City of Roseville, and I think I want to steal this idea for next year because it was so great. So very impressive.
Thank you so much. We have great staff members here, and Mr. Heitkamp, Mr. Ryan, thank you so much for always being innovative and bringing new opportunities for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. This is the opportunity for anyone in the audience or online who wishes to address the council on an item that is not on the printed agenda and not an application form that will be coming before us at a future date. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on an item that is not on the printed agenda? Ms. Collins, is there anyone online?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We will move on. The next item is additions to the final agenda. This is for emergency items only. And City Manager Lindberg, do we have any emergency items to come before the body?
Nothing from staff, Madam Mayor.
Okay, members of the council. And then we will move on. The next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a group of items that's considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. However, an item on the consent agenda can be removed for a separate discussion and vote. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes an item on the consent agenda to be removed for a separate discussion and vote? Ms. Collins, anyone online?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. City Manager Lindberg,
Nothing from staff, Mayor.
members of the council. Councilmember Keeley.
I'd like to pull item 4C and 4O.
Item 4C and 4O are being pulled for a separate discussion and vote. I would like a vote for the remaining items on the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Item 4C is to approve the addendum with the Venue Works of Burnsville LLC extending the management agreement term. Councilmember Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I pulled the item because we have a special guest in the audience tonight, Mr. Joe Romano from Venue Works, and I wanted to give he and our very own Executive Director of the Ames Center, Brian Luther, the opportunity to speak with regards to the council's action tonight to renew the the management contract with the Ames Center. And I had a nice meeting this morning with City Manager Lindberg and Mr. Romano and Mr. Luther, and I thought it'd be appropriate for them to say a few words on camera if they would like.
Mr. Luther? Yep. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council members, community of Burnsville. We're very pleased to be here tonight to put this item before the city council. We really appreciate all the work that has been done by city staff members, by the city council, to enable us to get to the point where we are with COVID and the recovery from COVID. And this, by approving this extension amendment on our contract, will allow us to continue the hard work that we're doing now and continue to carry that forward and for the community and to continue the success of the Ames Center and its contribution. So thank you very much for your hard work and supporting us to get to this point.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, city staff, it's a pleasure for me to be here tonight. I had an excellent meeting this morning with Councilman Keeley and with the city manager. VenueWorks appreciates and values the partnership it has with the city of Burnsville. We're very, very happy to be able to extend, or the opportunity to extend this management agreement, continue to work in the community, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the staff, the VenueWorks staff working at the Ames Center and the job they do, because they truly are our representatives at the location. They are the ones that interact with the community and the city, and we could not be more proud of the job that they have done, especially coming through the pandemic and now as we move through the recovery. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Okay, Mr. Romano and Mr. Luther, thank you so much. And Mr. Luther, thank you for your partnership and for being part of the team, and that we continue to work for this particular asset to be a success in the city of Burnsville. And I thank all of your staff members for all of the hard work that they do each and every day to ensure that that asset that belongs to the people of Burnsville continues to be successful and to move now from surviving to thriving. So I thank you so much for all of that, and I am grateful, truly grateful, for the work that you do for our community. Councilmember Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll extend my comments noted this morning. One of the things I said to Joe is we really appreciate Brian a lot. He's done a tremendous amount to take that facility to a profitable position pre-COVID, and we know that he's going to return it to profitability, operation profit, of course, operating profit as we really come out of this pandemic. And he did a fantastic job capitalizing on revenue opportunities at a time when it was really difficult to predict what to do next, because the typical calendar for Executive Director Luther is to book things 6 months to 2 years out. You can imagine how difficult that is in the middle of a pandemic and having no idea when the pandemic was going to end, as nobody had a crystal ball that could tell the future, but he lives in the future every day. And so being able to capitalize as we sort of moved away from the restrictions and had more freedoms and could put more people in the facility and getting acts back in there, performances, concerts, plays, et cetera, dance competitions, really ended up with a big surge in late 2021, and the year ended up far better than originally expected. So that wasn't done very easily, and I can tell you it wasn't done with a 40-hour work week. Brian is there every morning, and I saw him there every time I was there for an event way into the evening. I thought maybe he had a cot or something in the back office, and he was spending the night there, because I know he did incredibly long hours over an incredibly long period of time to pull us through this pandemic. So my compliments, thank you. I'm glad you didn't burn yourself out and want to leave, because we want to keep you. And this new contract puts in a 5-year duration, which the previous contract had a 1-year renewal. And the other thing we've all learned about operating a facility like this is it's really difficult for the management company to really plan ahead if they're every year, after a 5-year stretch, if every year they have to be renewed or they're up for renewal. And Brian has definitely proved himself more than once, many times over, that he is the right person in the right facility, in the right city, and he's brought nothing but success to that facility, and we'd love to see that go in the future. So thank you very much.
City Manager Lindberg.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, just real quickly, I would be remiss not to say thank you to Brian for his leadership. He's an important part of our team and strong partnership, not only with him, but with VenueWorks, and certainly Brian's staff is incredibly important to the community, to our staff operation, and as you all have pointed out, it's been a rough couple of years, and I don't think that we would have been as successful with the operation, certainly without Brian. So thank you, Brian, for what you do, and council, I very much appreciate your support in continuing this agreement. It's the right thing to do, and it's about stability moving forward, so thank you for that.
Move to approve item C. I'm sorry.
I just want
Without your
to
asking.
clarify, Councilmember Keeley, that the agreement says 1 year at a time up to 5. What we've done with this agreement is to say 5 years rather than every year, 1 year after that. So this agreement is for 5 years. So that's what it is, instead of 1 year, because that was the original agreement. We're amending it to say 5 years.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that it is for 5 years.
Yes.
And not every year you have to come before us.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item that's being pulled for a separate discussion and vote is 4O, and this is to adopt findings of fact for a variance denial for Scott Hemingway of the Geneva Suites for a variance for reasonable accommodation to allow a residential dwelling group home as defined and licensed by the state of Minnesota to accommodate 10 persons as opposed to the 6 persons permitted by city code in the existing single-family home located at 3108 Fox Point Circle. Councilmember Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The reason I wanted to pull this item is the process that we followed to get here was a little different. And this council has, in many times, sorry, my flag is crooked, in many cases, had a preliminary sketch plan brought before us. And we usually always give honest feedback, whether we like it or not. And in this case, when Geneva Suites came before us at a sketch plan work session, this council, all 5 of us, basically said we like the idea, bring it forward. And at that point, Geneva Suites felt comfortable to bring it forward. In other words, invest time and money into pursuing it. Had we said we weren't interested, they wouldn't have taken that path, because obviously that would have been a waste of time and money. I'm not a big fan of sort of leading someone down a road and then closing the door on them. That's my problem with this process and what happened. For no other reason, I'd like to see the council and the city government treat businesses fairly and equitably and consistently. And generally speaking, we always do that. We've done this process with other applicants in the past. And it's very unusual for this body to change direction after initial direction was given. So I just want to line out a few things, and then I'd like to make a proposal that I believe is a really fair compromise. And I'm actually going to steal the idea from my fellow council member Gustafson, who had actually thrown this out at our last meeting when we had this discussion. Geneva is a very familiar operator in our city. This is not a new entity. They have 2 facilities that one started back in 2015. So they're a 7-year proven, they have a 7-year proven track record in operating disabled senior care home facilities. They have actually a really great record. One of the things that came out of this whole process with our planning commission hearing and our discussions is there really wasn't any complaints of traffic and noise and nuisance or anything. The only thing that came out of it was a couple garbage cans were left out a few days longer than they should. And we didn't hear the kind of things that we hear about other group homes that we do host in the city, that we have no choice on hosting or not, right? State statute dictates that a group home is allowed with up to 6 people without any council action. And they can buy any home they want anywhere in the city and operate a group home. We only come in when that group home would like to have a few more people than the 6 that is granted automatically in the state statute, or there's some other circumstances related to that particular group home, which happened actually a few years back, and where the idea came from. They stated that they care for seniors with disabilities who rarely ever drive, and in their current 2 homes, I've never seen an email or been made aware of any complaints about traffic, visitation, people coming and going, et cetera. It's not indicative of folks in their final phase of life to have that sort of activity. It's also worth pointing out, there wasn't any requirements that we set out of them that they haven't met. And along the way, they've been honest, forthright, met with the neighborhood multiple times, went out of their way to be a good neighbor, because that's what they do in their current few homes. So how we got to where we are today still puzzled me. They also offer what the market's looking for, and that is senior disabled care, hospice care in a home environment. And I said on camera the last time, my own father was put in a memory care institution, and I wish back then, years ago, I would have known that these facilities were available, because the institution that he went into was the highest rated one in the city that he was in, and yet it was nowhere near the quality of care that I would have preferred while he was with us. I believe, and this is my own personal opinion, that we in the city council want to be part of the solution for housing. We have a lot of housing crises going on right now. This is just one of them. But we have done a lot of work in providing additional senior apartments, the Presbyterian homes, senior care with independent living and memory care and et cetera. And so this is just another phase of that. And we've always been, this council, over the years that I've been here, has always been supportive of every one of these types of projects, because the reality is we're all just getting older. Baby boomers are increasing in numbers of needing these types of services, and quality senior care for disabled, memory care. You've all seen the news reports. The number of facilities is actually declining because of a problem with wages and other things. And this particular company appears to be bucking that trend. I'm proposing that we consider what Councilmember Gustafson tossed out actually at our last discussion, and we really didn't have a discussion on that idea. I mean, I don't know that we were ready for it, maybe, or why we didn't, but I think that was the time we probably should have discussed it. So I reached out to Scott and the owner of Geneva Suites, and I said, I'm just curious, is 8, what would 8 do as far as the number of caregivers, the number of deliveries, the number of, et cetera? What impact would that have? And because they have a very low caregiver to patient ratio, going from 1 to 3 or to 1 to 4 would actually fit within what they do. It's what they accept. Their goal is more caregivers for patients as possible. But 1 to 4 is within what they operate and do. So he basically said that wouldn't change anything. We'd still have the same delivery and the same number, 2 caregivers, whose cars would be parked in the garage. So I don't know if Councilmember Gustafson knew that this 8 number had so much credibility when he tossed it out in his comments, but it turns out it's actually a great solution. Before we have any further discussion, because I've had a conversation with Mr. Hemingway saying, is 8 something that's doable? I'd like to ask Scott to come up and publicly comment on whether that is even something that works. If you would, Mr. Hemingway, Madam Mayor, could we have him speak?
Mr. Hemingway, you can come and take the podium, but this item is not being recalled. And this item is only being discussed because it was raised. Okay. But before us, We're here to act on the findings of fact for denial. So you were asked to come and speak. I give you the platform.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, council members. Having 8 residents in the home, the change in dynamic is the level of care that we provide. And so when we look at the residents that we'd be able to accept, our nursing staff would look at the types of cares that are needed. And if, most facilities have a ratio of 1 to 10, sometimes 1 to 15, 1 to 20. Having a ratio of 1 to 4 is something that is very accommodable. We can accommodate that. A lot of other homes accommodate the 1 to 4 ratio. So it's not something that we can't do. Is it ideal for us? No. But if that's the compromise with the council, we would be open to that.
Thank you. Let me just be clear to everybody. You may take a seat. When Mr. Hemingway came before us, one of the things that I did say, yes, we did say that we would be open, but I said meet with the neighborhood. And when the item was brought before us, and I asked members of the neighborhood whether they were invited to a meeting with the developer, some said they were not invited. So there was only one meeting that I understand, and not everyone was present, but everyone was present here to speak against it, and also at the Planning Commission meeting. So what I do want for people to understand, and I'm going to go to our attorney, and I'm going to ask Mr. Shepherd. Mr. Shepherd, this is not just this license from the state for a group home. It's not just for senior housing. This is for all group homes, and it has an effect on a neighborhood throughout the whole community and in other cities. Could you please address your findings of fact that begins on page 3?
Okay, Mayor and members of the council, you have in front of you tonight findings of fact for denial that were based on the discussion that the council had at the last meeting. So as we discussed and as staff discussed, we had asked you to articulate the reasons for whether it be approving or denial, and the majority of the council voted for denial. The findings of fact incorporate many of the reasons that were articulated for denial, including issues of traffic, whether it is a multifamily use in a single family residence, and what in particular the finding of fact on page 3 points out and makes reference to the state statute. So we talked last time about the state statute. The state statute and the city code mirror each other. The state statute allows a 6-person residential facility as a single family home, as Councilmember Keeley mentioned as of right. The statute, this is 462 through 57, subdivision 8 says that if you have a home from 7 to 16, that is considered a multifamily use and is permitted in a multifamily residential district as a matter of right. Cities can, however, make that pursuant to a conditional use permit or a special use permit in order to have mitigating conditions. So the findings of fact that are in front of you reference the state statute, and that in this single family neighborhood, we are considering what is considered by statute a multifamily use. In addition, as we talked about at the last meeting, we're analyzing the practical difficulties test for variance, but we're also looking at reasonable accommodation. So the under the ADA, so that the findings of fact have the practical difficulties test analysis in line with what the majority of council views was on the denial, as well as the reasonable accommodation analysis, keying in on the issue of whether this is necessary to accommodate in order, and again, between the 6 and 10, whether that number is necessary, and that is reflected in the findings of fact.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Councilmember Schultz.
So this question is for our attorney so that we have clarity. If the council had articulated, first of all, I'll back up. The document that you drew up is a restatement of what council said. If council had said something different, you would have drawn up different things in the document, correct?
Mayor and Council, that's correct. My job as the lawyer and working with staff is to draft the findings of fact that are legally supportable to support the decision that the council has made. So at the last meeting, as we know, the decision was to direct staff to make findings of fact supporting denial, and that's what the council has in front of it this evening.
If I can follow up?
Yes.
If council had decided differently, would that set precedent throughout the state? Would that set a legal precedent throughout the state?
This is a fact-specific inquiry that the council is undertaking with respect to the specific application that's in front of it, and its our application of city code, our application of the variance process, as well as all the information that you have in front of you in the record.
I appreciate that greatly. I just wanted people to have clarity over what is contained in the document, what the document actually does. And then I do have a question for Mr. Hemingway, if I may ask that.
Yeah, Mr. Hemingway, if you could come forward, please.
Yes.
I don't expect you to have a perfect accounting, but could you go through some of the time and expenses that you incurred after council said, yeah, this looks pretty good, okay. And then you went forward to ask for this variance and come forward. So could, after council said, yeah, I don't really see a problem with this, after sketch plan, could you articulate the costs incurred and the time that you have then spent?
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to say that I don't have an accounting on it right now. However, when we talk about time that it takes away from staff and myself to focus on a new project, it's easily in the thousands of dollars. I mean, that's an easy one. Whether it's 10, 20,000, I don't know, but it's easily in the thousands of dollars. So, I mean, I can certainly get an accounting. I'm not sure if that's going to help, but I appreciate the question.
Absolutely. And if council had raised red flags and said, ooh, I don't know about that, would you have spent that time and money to go for the variance?
We really, we went along the process with the yes from a number of different areas, including, by the way, the meeting that we had at the office for the neighbors to come and visit with us. And that was real. We sent out the invitation, but we didn't create the names. So would we have continued on? Probably not.
And when you extended that invitation, where did you get the names and where did you get the idea of whom to invite to this neighborhood meeting?
At the direction of council, we were asked to make sure that we're including the neighbors, and we agreed. We thought that was a good idea. And so we were given names and addresses to send a note to invite to a meeting or a information session at our office. And, that's what we went by, as the names and addresses that were given to us.
And who were they given to you by?
I would have to look at our emails, sorry. But it's in an email.
Okay, was this someone that is working for the city?
Yes,
Thank you, so it was a city employee.
city staff, yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Back to, Councilmember Schultz really hit on all the points of why I wanted to pull this item. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the neighborhood. who participated in the open meetings and gave their feedback. It is the fact that we, as a body, led an applicant in a direction, and we turned around and about-faced, changed that direction. And I don't, that's just not what we normally do. I don't like that kind of government. And I think there's lots of examples of that kind of stuff going on that's far worse. People who've been, investing millions in property and then, and been told by city staff that, and this is not Burnsville, city staff that they could pursue a business, and then in the 11th hour, were not given their permits and told, oh, we've changed our mind, we're putting a moratorium, and have completely in my opinion, right, slapped the applicant and the business in the face and said, sorry, sorry you invested all the millions, but too bad, we're changing the rules. This isn't that severe, obviously, but it's the same type of principle, and I will say that it goes against my principles. I don't like when that happens, and it happened in this case. It surprised me, but I think there was a compromise sitting right in front of us, and again, as I said earlier, I just didn't pick up on it, and I don't know if Councilmember Gustafson was. And I don't think he was intending on making a motion for a compromise. I think he just, it came out and a discussion, and we never did anything with it. So in trying to find compromise and some common ground for both the city and the residents and this business owner who's providing a highly in need, high quality care for these senior disabled folks, I felt that having this discussion before we make this final vote and consider changing direction once again to come to a compromise with an 8-person limit was worth doing, because I just, like I said, I had a real problem with what happened and how it happened, and I think we have an opportunity here to make a right out of what I believe is wrong. Now, it's not viewed as wrong by everybody. It's my personal opinion. I guess I would like to hear from Councilmember Gustafson if he's interested in that discussion of what he had suggested that night at our meeting of an 8-person maximum. And that would be a discussion, obviously, that would happen in the future, because we'd have to take action on this findings of facts to then direct staff to come back with a different findings of facts for a future meeting. But in the interim, I think this is the body that made the decision to say yes unanimously to Geneva Suites to come forward. This is the same body that turned around and said 3-2, sorry, we don't like it anymore. And so I think it's incumbent on this body to ultimately make another decision tonight, whether we're going to stay on that course or change.
I'm going to go first to Councilmember Workman. He's in queue.
Thank you. So I appreciate what Councilmember Keeley is saying, but at the Tuesday, April 5th meeting, when we had that discussion, we did not vote to approve or deny this application. We did that on June 7th. What we said was we would be open to allowing the process to take shape, and part of that process is the neighborhood meetings and hearing from the public about what is happening, as well as running it through our planning commission. So when we said yes April 5th, we weren't saying yes to the project that time. We were saying yes, let's let the process happen. The process happened. We took in all of the information, including the voices from the neighbors and other community members that live near these facilities, and then made a decision with all the facts in front of us. On April 5th, we did not have those facts and those statements from the community in front of us. So I understand we may have said, yes, we're open to it, but at no point did we say, yes, we're approving this for 10 on April 5th. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Councilmember Gustafson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, like pretty much everyone in this audience, I didn't expect to be talking about this tonight, because prior to this, what we just heard up here, I have heard none of this from anybody. This is my first time hearing it, just like it's the first time you're hearing it. So I was told this morning that it was going to get pulled, and I was told this evening that about 10 minutes before I start, there might be another proposal. I appreciate the fact that Councilmember Keeley appreciates my leadership, names me many times and what he's talking about. And part of my decisions about that evening came down to businesses. It came down to inundating our city with group homes because we keep raising the level. And after hearing from many, many constituents after that vote, I feel I made the right decision. We heard from many neighborhoods that all have groups home in them. Some don't have problems, some have problems. And I think just adding more and more people can just add to problems. I'm not saying seniors are gonna be a big problem, but if we get to a reputation that we're just gonna keep raising it, group homes are a business, they're gonna buy these homes, and they're gonna put as many people in there as they possibly think they can get away with. That's just gonna happen. At the sketch plan itself, I agree that sounded okay for us. We knew the group homes had to come in anyways. Because I had meetings with this neighborhood for the other group home a while back, I never got any negative comments about this particular group home. But at that time, I don't think this neighborhood knew what they were planning on doing with that group home. And when that came out, I was actually surprised when you were at Planning Commission and voiced your opposition to it. Quite frankly, it shocked me because I thought you were okay with it. But as I looked more and more into it, it's like, no, you weren't okay with it. And I thought we came up with a good solution at our meeting last time around. I wish that someone on this council would have at least talked to me about this before polling it and invoking my name. That was the compromise? And I did throw that out there. But I have since changed my mind on that. I think the 6 works. And after a year, which we talked about, if they want to come back for more, we're open to talking to them again. But we need to get some sort of track record in the neighborhood. So I will be voting to deny. In fact, I'll make a motion to vote to deny.
Okay. There's a motion to vote to deny, or to accept the denial, the findings of fact for denial. Is there a second?
Second.
And there is a second. And then there is a discussion. Councilmember Schultz.
Just to let people know, I understand the concerns of the community. I don't negate that whatsoever. I will be voting no on adopting the findings of fact because looking at the findings of fact document, it has things as a fact, even though it is things that council, as a majority, said were true, are not true, and I will not have my name to that.
Okay. And so
Call a vote.
there's a vote and a second. All in favor, please say aye for denial.
Aye.
Aye. Nay?
Nay.
Okay. And this clerk has the division of the House. The findings of fact is denied, is vote to deny.
All right, great.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you for coming and for participating in the public process. The next item now is in the regular agenda, and we will move to the first item on the regular agenda, and that item is to audit the report from the independent auditor, MMKR. And presenting this evening is Jackie Hugel, presenting for MMKR, and I believe our interim CFO, Mr. Dan Tinton, is introducing the item. Mr. Tinton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Yes, I'm here to introduce Jackie Hegel with MMKR. She is the audit manager and principal with the firm, and she was responsible for leading the audit of the city for fiscal year 2021. She will provide an
My
overview.
apologies. If you could wait just a moment, there's so much crowd noise that I can't really hear you. So if we could just,
Yeah.
we'll wait a minute.
Yeah, we'll
Yes.
just, as people exit the room. Okay. You may proceed, Mr. Tinton.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Dan Tinter. I am the interim chief financial officer, and I'm here tonight to introduce Jackie Hegel with MMKR. She is the principal and the audit manager for the audit of the financial statements for the city for fiscal year 2021. She will provide an overview of their analysis and findings and ultimately the audit opinion. And then, of course, afterwards, she and staff would be happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Before I would turn it over to her, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge some folks in the audience, particularly Alyssa Ryan, who is now our Deputy Chief Financial Officer, having recently been promoted, but she is our audit manager and does a tremendous amount of work with her and the entire finance department staff in putting together what is a comprehensive and time-consuming document to compile. So definitely credit to her in putting this together. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Hegel, and she'll take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Ms. Hegel, and we look forward to your report.
Great. Well, thank you, Mayor and members of the council, for having me tonight. I am here to present the audit results for the year ended December 31st, 2021. As an auditor, my role as an auditor is to issue an opinion on the basic financial statements that the city puts together. Since your city does receive more than $750,000 in federal awards, there's a separate single audit of those specific federal dollars. In the current year, the city's CFA, which is that schedule of expenditures of federal awards, was roughly about $2.4 million. And the program that was audited in the current year was the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, which was about $1 million of those federal expenditures. As part of our audit, we test the internal controls and the compliance over the financial statement audit, with the federal single audit, and also with the Minnesota state laws and regulations. Each year, the Office of the State Auditor releases what's called the Legal Compliance Manual, which has specific statutes that as auditors we're required to test for. So we're not necessarily testing every statute, it's the ones that the Office of the State Auditor specifically puts out in the Legal Compliance Manual. And for the audit results over the financial statement audit, we issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on that basic financial statement. We had no findings to report over the internal controls over financial reporting, had no findings to report over the compliance with financial reporting, and no findings with that Minnesota legal compliance area. For the audit results over that federal single audit, we issued an opinion that that schedule of federal awards is fairly stated in relation to the basic financial statements. For the opinions on the internal control over federal compliance, I did have one comment to report on this year. It's with the suspension and debarment requirements in that federal grant area. So with our testing of that Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, we noted the city could improve controls in this area. There's procedures that need to be documented, that the city is not contracting with any vendors that are suspended or debarred. So we had no compliance issues to report, so there was no compliance to report in this area, but just making sure that the city does keep documentation that they are checking for this anytime they have federal awards that they are expending.
Ms. Hegel, on those federal, especially with the Shutter Venue grant, I believe the SBA did not have some of the requirements that was necessary in the application form, but that was found in another federal department?
Yeah, there's a separate federal compliance supplement that includes other requirements that could be on top of just the one grant agreement.
So will our staff know how to look for that? Or do we have to, I mean, because I know when I look through a lot of the grant throughout the federal government, they're all over the place. How do you find and make sure that we can comply? Because if we don't know, we can't make those.
Absolutely. The federal government does have a website that you can get the compliance supplements from. Some years they have been behind on releasing it with COVID funding recently and how much funding there has been. The federal government has been behind on releasing some of that. But there is a website out there now that does include various links to the information.
But it wasn't there when the SB.
Been there at the time that the grant was
I
awarded.
just want people to understand that it wasn't there when we were going through this process.
Yeah, some of the
of
compliance
applying.
supplements did get released late in the process with all the COVID funding that has been released.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to some of the financial results, I have several graphs and tables I'll walk through. This first one shows the taxable market value of the city for the past 10 years. For the 2021 year, the city saw an increase of just under 5% in the taxable market value. This graph looks like any other city we work with and audit the similar trend lines throughout the metro area. This next table here shows the average tax rate of the city of Burnsville for the past 3 years. For the 2021 year that was audited, the average tax rate was at 90. And you can see, looking at each of the various taxing authorities, that rate has decreased for the city and all the other various taxing authorities in the current year. This next table I have here, it's a table that summarizes the governmental fund revenue per capita. For the city of Burnsville, it gives 3 years of history, as well as it gives some statewide comparison. 2020 is the last year of statewide comparison that we have as of today. When you're looking for the 2021, the revenue per capita was at about $1,050, very comparable when you're comparing 2020 to 21 in total. A couple areas that did swing up and down. You're seeing your intergovernmental revenues decreased. A lot of that was due to the city received coronavirus relief funding in the prior year. The city also had received some funds from the county and other funding sources for the Lake Marion Trail project in the prior year. You're seeing an offset of that then in that franchise fees and tax area, which saw the increase. The city did implement an increase in those franchise fees mid-year 2020. So 2021 was the first full year of that increase in the franchise fees. Similar table here, just of the governmental fund expenditures per capita. For 2021, the city was about $1,200 per capita. The top part of that table has the current expenditures. You're seeing a decrease from prior year. A lot of that is in that all other area, and that was mainly due to the business assistance grant program that was funded by the coronavirus relief funds in the prior year. If you're looking in the middle area of that table, the capital outlay and construction increased. That was due with the construction on the new fire station in the current year. And then lastly, I'll just point out the bottom, the debt service expenditures per capita, very comparable to prior year, but the one item I did want to point out is if you're looking to statewide averages, you can see that the city of Burnsville is below the statewide average when you're looking at your debt service costs.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, Councilmember Workman, and then I'll go to Councilmember Keeley.
Sorry, I didn't know he was on.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a pretty significant drop-off in recreation from 20 to 21. Is there something that was attributed to that specifically?
In which line are you reading?
Recreation in December 31st, 2020, we were at 95, and then 2021, we're down to 17.
So for 2020, you're at the 17 compared to 17 and 21. The statewide averages, you're comparing to statewide averages is the 95.
I'm sorry.
And I will comment, the city of Burnsville does have their public works and parks go on the same function. So a lot of your recreation is falling in that public works line if you are comparing to statewide averages.
Okay, Councilmember Keeley?
I think you released my button from my last time I spoke. I didn't push it.
Oh, okay. Please proceed, Ms. Hagel.
The next several graphs I have here focus specifically on the general fund results of the city for the 2021 year. This shows the general fund financial position for the past 5 years, shows the fund balance of the city as well as the cash balance and the expenditures. The total cash balance at year end was about $32.9 million, an increase of just under $1 million. If you're looking at the fund balance at year end, ended about $28.6 million, which is a decrease of about $220,000 from the prior year. At year end, December 31st, the city was in line with the city's fund balance policy for the general fund. This next graph here summarizes the general fund revenues by source, all the tax revenues, the intergovernmental, and then all the other revenues for the past 5 years. Overall, the revenues in the general fund were about $1.1 million over the final budget. A lot of that is in the license and permit area, with the building activity being more than anticipated. And the city also saw tax revenues over budget, about $380,000. When you're comparing current year to prior year, the general fund revenues increased just slightly, about $200,000 from the prior year. A couple swings you're seeing there is the taxes increase with the increase in the general property tax levy. the license and permit, which fall in that all other area due to the increased building activity. And then that was offset. You're seeing the intergovernmental revenue decrease, once again, due to the coronavirus relief funds received in the prior year. Similar graph here, just of the general fund expenditures for the past 5 year by function. Overall, general fund expenditures were about 1.5 million under the final budget. Majority of that was in the general government function. They were about 800,000 under budget. There was various departments, the information technology, human resource and planning were all under budget. The city also saw the Public Works and Parks Department under budget about 450,000. That was just mainly due to the snow and ice removal and some of the street maintenance being less than anticipated. Overall, comparing current year to prior year, expenditures increased about 2.2 million. Majority of that was in the public safety area due to increases in the personnel costs in both the police and the fire departments. Next several slides I have focus more on those business type activities, the enterprise activities of the city. This shows the activity of the water and sewer fund for the past 5 years, showing the operating revenues, operating expenses, as well as that income loss. So for the 2021 year, the city saw an increase in the operating revenues in the water and sewer fund. It was mainly due to a rate increase in the current year, as well as an increase in the consumption. And then operating expenses, excluding that depreciation line, you're seeing a decrease, and that's that blue graph line you're looking at there. That was mainly due to fewer repairs and maintenance in the current year. In the prior year, there was some maintenance on a water tower project. Similar graph just of the stormwater enterprise fund. Overall, the operating revenues saw an increase of about 130,000 from the prior year. The expenses, if you exclude that depreciation, saw a decrease of about $1 million. Once again, mainly due to decreased repairs and maintenance costs. There were several pond cleanout projects in the prior year compared to the current year. It's a graph of the Ames Center Fund for the past 5 years for some trend history. For the 2021 year, you saw the revenues end at just about 3.1 million. That's an increase of about 1.5 million from the prior year. A lot of that was due to reduced COVID restrictions, as well as the receipt of that shuttered venue operators grant in the current year. And then you're seeing your increase in your expenses mainly in that increased contract labors and repairs and maintenance. And then the last enterprise fund I have here is the Ice Arena Fund. Overall operating revenues, you saw an increase in the current year, once again due to less COVID restrictions in the current year, so there's more activity going on. When you're looking at your expenses, they were pretty comparable to the prior year, up slightly, about 50,000, mainly in the utilities expense. So in summary, I issued a clean opinion on the basic financial statements of the city. I did have the one finding to report in the current year. And in closing, I did just want to comment that the city did prepare the annual comprehensive financial report, which will be submitted to the GFOA for the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting again in the 2021 year. So with that, I can open it up if there are any other questions.
Councilmember Keeley?
Thank you. Comprehensive report as usual. This question might be for City Manager Lindberg or Interim Finance Director, Mr. Tinter. The public safety increase in costs 21 over 20 was 1.68 million. What was the lion's share? What was the reason for that call it 1.7 rounded?
Councilmember Keeley, I would have to turn to finance staff specifics on that. Dan or Alyssa?
Yeah. Mr. Tinter?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, we would have to look into that and get back to you. Admittedly, that's a little before my time, so I would have to take a step back and take a look, but we can get you that information certainly after the meeting.
Maybe where I'm going with it is, do you have an idea of how much overtime was generated by public safety in 2021 versus 2020?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, no, not at my fingertips, but we can, of course, get the council that information.
The reason I'm asking is, thank you, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. I thought maybe it was a number that you might have because of all the budget work you've been deep into the budget for a while now, and just looking back 2021 as obviously you look at 2022 and then plan for 2023. So it's probably potentially a problem occurring again this year. But what I'm looking for is how much overtime is the Public Safety Department expending because we apparently appear to have a shortfall in regular staff in our police and fire, so we wouldn't have to pay so much overtime.
Councilmember Keeley, certainly I've noted that question. We have talked about that a bit in our organizational analysis. I don't have it at my fingertips now, but we'll get that information to the council.
Thank you. I think it's something, it's part of our greater budget discussion, but when I noticed there was a bit of a, when you look at the prior 17, 18, 19, and 20, there were just small incremental increases in public safety costs. And then you see 2020 and it jumps by 1.7 million. So knowing what we've been through with the pandemic, knowing the demands on public safety and the stress and the overtime, I had a feeling that larger than normal jump may have something to do with overtime because it's obviously very expensive, right? And it gets into that discussion of operationalizing that with additional staff, so we're not stressing them out and having that kind of an increase in costs. So any more of a general global budget comment, I suppose.
And when you're looking at public safety, police and fire.
Yes, both police and fire.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, we can certainly, as part of your future budget conversations, explore that question in greater detail. Some of it, of course, will be a function of what the city manager ultimately recommends with respect to police staffing. As you know from the organizational analysis, it does contemplate a number of additional police officers in particular, and assuming those are added as part of the city manager's recommendation, that would ultimately change the amount of overtime that may be needed in the operating budget on an annual basis.
I would also add to Dan's comment. I think we'll get you the information. I don't want to make an assumption that it is overtime based, just for clarity for the viewing audience. But we'll get you that information and certainly make sure that it's included in our next budget conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Workman.
Thank you, and this question is for our auditor. For that report, the one finding that was reported, we always try to be perfect or strive for perfection. And as this one was explained to me, this was kind of a tricky situation. And if you can't answer this is okay. But are there other communities that host venues that are likely going to be seeing similar findings just because of how convoluted the application seemed to have been with this very specific requirement?
Yeah, so I can't comment to other communities. I myself don't work with any other communities that receive this type of grant, but I can say in general with the federal compliance requirements, there is a lot of federal compliance requirements. So in general, it's not unusual for other organizations, local governments to receive findings in this area. So I can comment to that just because of the extensiveness of all the compliance testing. It's not unusual. The biggest thing that we always look at as auditors too is how does the city respond to it? How do you react to a finding? So every year, any organization we're working with, if there is any comment or finding, we have to follow up in the subsequent year on it. So that is one thing we'll be doing as next year's audit is following up on it, and is that the organization taking action on any comment.
Okay.
But I can't comment specifically. I haven't seen that grant other places I work with.
And just for the viewing audience and for clarification, this finding isn't impacting our financial statement or creditworthiness or anything like that. It was simply more of a logistical.
And more of an internal control. There was no compliance issues to report, an internal control deficiency.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Gustafson.
This is a question for you, Dan. Let's go back to public safety for a minute. And I know you don't have the answer right now, but you're going to investigate some things. I would like to actually know how the naturally occurring raises happen due to contracts, costs due to contracts, due to para, due to workers' comp, that sort of thing for public safety? Because I believe that's been going up quite a bit lately. It should account for a fair amount of that. And if I'm
Mayor,
wrong, tell me.
members. What's that?
And if I'm wrong, tell me.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, yes, when it comes to personnel costs specific to public safety, and I would say even more specific to police, there are any number of drivers. One of the primary ones over the last couple of years would be workers' compensation insurance. We have been advised by the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust that the rates for those particular classes of employees are increasing because of higher occurrences of PTSD and other on-the-job related claims. And so our modeling even for the 2023 budget includes another 10% increase in workers' compensation, for example. Again, that is consistent with information that we've received from our partners at the League's Insurance Trust. Additionally, there are other considerations mainly related to the labor agreements themselves. And as we've talked about in our recent budget work sessions, all of the city's labor agreements will expire this year and will be up for renegotiation and will be renegotiated later this fiscal year. And so you may recall from our previous budget conversations, we kind of had the slide of things that were not included, and that was one of the things that was not included because we're not exactly sure how those will be settled and when they'll be settled and what may be included in them, primarily as it relates to some of those wage-related questions and benefit-related questions. The para question is one that does come up from time to time. There hasn't been any movement on para-related compensation and contributions in the recent past, but for, not necessarily on the rates, the state recently let the para-related aid lapse. They did increase the rates some time ago and made a commitment that they would pay for the difference, and that has not occurred. In fact, the aid has gone down. And the last thing I'll say related to some of those costs is there are in the line of duty costs that the city is responsible for with respect to public safety, primarily as it relates to insurance benefits. Again, the state legislature mandated the city to provide those benefits to officers that are injured in the line of duty. At the time they made that mandate, they also promised to pay the cost of those benefits. At this point in time.
Yeah.
I believe, I'd have to go back and check this in particular, but I think the city received something about 40 cents on the dollar for those benefits. So if those costs do increase over time, those costs are more the responsibility of the city. There is an offset from the state, but it is not consistent with the growth in those cost centers. So those are some of the moving parts, certainly not all of them. And as City Manager Lindberg mentioned, it may not in fact just be overtime or benefits that are related, but we can certainly do more of an analysis and provide more information for the council at a future budget work session. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Lindberg.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, just to reiterate Dan's point, we absolutely will follow up on those questions. I'll get you that information, and then we'll also include it in future budget discussions.
Okay, thank you. Members of the council, if there are no other questions, and thank you so much, Ms. Hagel, for bringing a clean opinion for us and also helping us to understand that now we do have a federal registry of where we can find so that we can also have a clean opinion on these single audit federal grant money. So thank you so much. And it's good to know that we continue to have a very strong financial position. So thank you. And members of the council, I need a motion to accept the audit report.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Councilmember Keeley, discussion.
I just want to point out, you had mentioned earlier, I don't think over the last 2+ years there's been anything coming from the federal government that was actually timely with regard to all of these emergency actions. They would vote to put money out and then sort of figure out the details and the policy and the guidelines later, and some of them dragged out for months. And so with regard to that shuttered venue fund and that one particular fine, I think it's it's minuscule, it's meaningless, and it's really hard to have any confidence in the federal government's ability to actually put something out in an emergency situation that actually has all the i's dotted and the t's crossed before it goes out. And so I think all things factored in, we did really good with this audit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now there is a motion to accept the audit report and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay, and a motion carries. Thank you so much for coming in. The next item on the agenda is an ordinance adopting the revisions to City Code Title 3, Chapter 20, 21, and 22. Presenting is our city clerk, Ms. Collins. Ms. Collins, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. We do have, in your backgrounds, there was a chart that showed the differences that were made, the changes that were made to chapters 20, 21, and 22 of the Title III. And these all were approved unanimously from the Code Review Task Force. If you have any questions on any of the items that were amended, any of the language?
Councilmember Schultz?
First of all, I would thank you for all the work that they've done on this. This one especially on how it's laid out in our agendas. I like how it's calling out the current code, the proposed changes, the red lining, the green lining. That makes it so much easier to quickly see all the work that our task force is doing on this. And this one has really cleaned it up. It is now organized, it's understandable. They have removed entire sections which were just no longer applicable. I like that where ambiguous processes were before, they have now cleanly outlined an appeals process for persons. This really is excellent work. I am going to be, I will let other people have their say, but I'm going to be very pleased when we motion to accept this one. This is one of those sections that now when our residents are looking for information to see what you can or can't do, it is so clear. It is really clear. But yeah, the updating is great. And again, the appeals process, if someone is denied, I also like that they put in there, if someone is denied, our city manager has some discretion as well. So it makes it a much, much more fair process. And they've also more narrowly defined that instead of just, okay, if you got in trouble with the law, you can never do this. And instead they've said, no. You know, if it's in this specific area and you haven't shown that, you know, you're changing your life and making amends, okay, then it's a no. So this is dead on. I'm so pleased with this one, so.
Councilmember Keeley?
Top of page 5, first green paragraph, second line, third word to the right, from
Yeah,
the right.
I've got it written down here that there's a typo.
N? Yeah,
N, it
that,
should-
right,
yes,
obviously.
that's a typo.
And then I just wanted to point out, I really like I'll just echo what Councilmember Schultz said in general, that the cleaning up of the language. I also really appreciate removing the word handicapped and putting accessible in place of that. That really is reflecting language that is used today. And I think it's more fitting, right, as we talk about accessible playgrounds and accessible facilities, so.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Councilmember
that. That
Keeley.
was great.
The task force members suggested that change.
Yeah, good,
That
good
was
change.
really good.
I mean, this is full of a lot of good changes, but those were a couple highlights, just that one type. It's really hard for me to see a typo and not, and just go over it. Like, I may as well just call it out. Thank you.
Okay. And I want to thank our staff, because from the last meeting,
Yeah.
I asked what it would take and if it would be agreeable with council that our staff put together the items that they worked on and the changes. And our staff did exactly that. So to Ms. Collins and to her group, I think her deputy city clerk, Ms. Henderson, did the write-up on this, and it's so well done. So thank you for your leadership on this and for bringing that out, because when you look at the items that had amendments and red lines and all of that, it is easy to go back down to the ordinance and see it. So to you and your staff, thank you very much. So I think this is the format as we move forward. And also, please extend our gratitude to the task force for their work. So to all of you, thank you. So members of the council, I need a motion. First of all, because there's two parts to this, I need a motion to adopt the ordinance revising Title III, Chapter 20, 21, and 2.
I so move.
Second.
Councilmember Schultz makes the motions, and second by Councilmember Workman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Now, the next motion on this item is,
To publish.
and yes, it's for the summary publication.
down.
And I need a motion to authorize the summary ordinance publication.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Collins. And members of the council, there are no other items to come before the body this evening, and a motion to adjourn is in order.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Then to all of our residents who are watching, we are going to take a break so that we can reset the room, and then we will go on to our special work session with service delivery. City Manager Lindberg, is there anything?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, it'll probably take us about 20 minutes to reset the room. So as the community's watching, about 20 minutes, and we'll be back in here and back live and streaming through our multimedia channels.
Thank you so much. So don't go away too far. We'll be back in 20 minutes.